Hello, so glad to have you. This is lesson 2 in our series designed to help equip teachers as we're preparing for digital learning. This lesson is all about navigating Google Classroom. The topics for this lesson are 5. The first 3 of those we'll consider as kind of core topics, and the last 2 would definitely be more optional. The defaults are probably already going to be okay, and you may not need to mess with those last 2 topics. The first topic is about the classes page for Google Classroom. So the classes page is where you land when you go to classroom.google.com, and it shows the list of all the classes that you are a teacher of, or if you're a student, if you log in as a student, all the classes that you are a member of. Just a couple parts of this page. Here at the top right, we've already talked about this. That's how you add a new class. So you can either join or create a new class using that plus button on the top right. The top left, this 3 bars menu, this hamburger menu, is the main menu. And then your list of classes, each one of those has a 3 dots button, and that 3 dots button gives you the opportunity to move, edit, copy, or archive that class. And then each class also has 2 more buttons. The one that looks like a little folder that gives you the opportunity to go to the Google Drive folder for that class, and one that looks like a chart that lets you see the grade book for that class. The student view is very similar. I do want to just point out briefly that the student view is a little bit different. Instead of seeing the grade book for that class, the student has the opportunity to see their work for that particular class. So that's a handy shortcut. The second topic deals with that main menu. And again, you get to that main menu through that 3 bars hamburger button on the top left of any page in Google Classroom. So whether you're on the classes page or whether you're in one particular class, in either case, that 3 bars menu is available to you. If you click that 3 bars menu, it brings up a list of options along the left side of the screen. Those include a shortcut back to the classes page, an opportunity to go to the calendar that shows all the assignments for all of the classes that you teach, a list of assignments, and then the main part is the list of classes, just an alternate view that gives you the opportunity to go to any one class that you teach as a shortcut. Down at the bottom, there's 2 options that you may miss. That is the archived classes and the settings. So just a real quick version of each one of those. We've already looked at the classes menu. The next one of those is the calendar. By default, it gives you a week view that shows all the assignments, and you can scroll within that to go to different weeks. By default, it shows you all of the classes that you teach, or if you're a student, all the classes that you're a member of, but you can filter that as well. It shows all the assignment due dates and time along with the assignment name. That is just a brief version of the calendar, not a full access to Google Calendar. If you want to get to Google Calendar with all of the features that it includes, there's a shortcut here at the top right. The calendar gives you kind of a visual view of what assignments are due, putting them in a particular location based on when they're due. The next option is the to review. That's what they call it for teachers. It gives you a list of all the assignments that have been turned in. There are 2 main tabs here, the to review. There's also the reviewed tab. And the default is that it shows you all of the classes, but you can click to choose one class at a time. And it shows you what work has been turned in, what work has been assigned, what work has been graded. It gives you kind of a list view of all the work that your students have done for you. Those assignments stay in that to review list until you click this 3 dots menu. In this case, that 3 dots menu gives you the opportunity to mark as reviewed, and then it would go into that reviewed tab. Very similar option is available for students, except instead of to review, they call it to do for students. And the options are to do and done for students, and it gives them the opportunity to see from oldest to newest, with oldest at the top, which assignments, if they choose the to do tab, which assignments they have not completed yet. And it kind of focuses on the ones that are kind of past due, kind of missing assignments. It'd be a great opportunity to help your students be aware of that tool so that they can not miss out on any assignments they need to complete. If you scroll down to the bottom of the main menu, you do have the opportunity to look at archived classes. Once you've finished an academic year, I would suggest that you archive a class. You can do that through the classes menu. And in order to get back to that archived class, you'd choose the main menu, scroll down to the bottom, find the list of archived classes. Each one of those archived classes has content that you and students can still view, but nobody can make any changes to it unless you restore it. Each of those classes has a 3 dots menu. In this case, it gives you the options to move, copy, restore, or delete. I would suggest that you not delete those courses, but you may want to restore them. However, even if you don't restore them, all the content, all the assignments and posts that you made in a previous year, you'll be able to recycle, and we'll talk more about that later. Finally, in the main menu, there's an opportunity way down at the bottom to look at settings, and these are settings for all of the Google classes that you are a part of. It really is settings about which notifications that you get. I think by default, almost all of these notifications are on, but you can choose to turn them off if you want, and not just what type of notifications, but also which classes you get notifications for. So it may be the case that you don't want to get notifications for a class where you're just a co-teacher. That's the situation for myself. Or maybe that you want to make sure that you check those settings and make sure that you're getting the notifications that you want. All right, our third topic, and last of our kind of core topics for this lesson, deals with the tabs within a class. This is all about navigating Google Classroom. So this is what you see when you go to Google Classroom. So there's 4 tabs within a class. There's a stream, classwork, people, and grades, and those typically are viewable right at the top of the page. So I want to look at each one of those briefly. The stream tab, you can get back to that by choosing the stream button here. Also, when you click on the name of a class that usually stays at the top left, not the 3 bars menu, not the hamburger menu, but the name of the class itself, that's also a shortcut to get back to the stream. So just want to show you what this stream includes. There's a nice header that you can choose to change if you want. There's also the class code, and you can choose to make the link viewable for a Google Meet for your students. This is also where you'd share where you share announcements with students, ask them questions, get feedback, look at the questions that they ask. And then there's a pane here called Upcoming that gives you the opportunity to see which assignments students are going to be looking at shortly. We'll go into more details about the stream in a future video. The second tab from the left is the Classwork tab. This is where you would assign and view the work that you want students to do, or the work that students have done. Just briefly to show you what's here, you have the opportunity to create classwork for your class. And there's a number of different types. There's an assignment, a quiz assignment, a question, material. You have the opportunity to reuse a post, and you have the opportunity to create a topic. Creating a topic is really just a visual organizer. Like I created a topic called Week 2. It lets me sort assignments, and we'll talk more about that later. Finally, in the Classworks tab, you also have a set of 3 links, a shortcut to a Google Meet for your class, a shortcut to the calendar. This would be the full view of the calendar, not the shortcut, not the partial view that you see through the main menu, and also a link to the Google Drive folder. The third tab is the People tab, and you get to that by clicking the People word here in our tabs chooser. There are 2 types of people in a class. They're teachers and students, and you can choose to add teachers, invite people to be a co-teacher in your class. You can choose to invite students. We've talked about that. There's also actions that you can take for one or many of those students in your class, and we'll talk more about those later. Last tab that we'll look at, last tab that is included is the gradebook tab for Killing Hill teachers. This would just be a tool that might be helpful for you. We'll still ask all of our official grades to go into RenWeb so that parents can view those through Parents Web. But it is sometimes useful to get another view of the work that students have done. And they list the assignments for each student. Each assignment has a grade if it's been graded. If it's blank, like in this case, it has not been graded yet. You may have the opportunity, you may want to choose to show the overall grade for yourself, and you do have options of sorting that either by last name or by first name for your class. So those are the main core topics for navigating Google Classroom. Hopefully you learned a little bit that's new. Also want to look at two topics that are kind of optional and just briefly introduce you to those. This first one is about how you might customize or personalize your Google Classroom page. And really the idea is if you want to have a particular header for your class, you can choose a different theme that they have kind of pre-selected for you, or you can choose an image of your own. In addition, you may want to go to the settings button, this settings gear button on the top right, and change some details about the class. For example, you might give the class a particular description that might be helpful for parents or students. You might tell which room it's in. You might tell which subject it belongs to, etc. I will mention that this section might be helpful, especially for secondary students. You might put what times that class meets. Say Monday, Tuesday, Thursday from 8 o'clock to 9:40 or something like that, to remind students, remind yourself exactly what time that class meets. The final topic will deal with the settings for each individual class. This is a little bit different than the settings for all of Google Classroom, which is really about which notifications you get. The settings for each individual class, again, you're going to get to those through the gear button in the top right of one particular Google Classroom page. There are two other sections in addition to the class details. They're the general settings. You can change or deactivate the class code to make sure that the wrong people don't join. You can choose which permissions students have in your stream. The default is that they can post and comment. You can make it so that they can only comment, or you can make it so they can only view. In the stream, by default, Google sends a little notification into the stream whenever you post an assignment, a work, and you can choose whether they get a lot of details, no details at all, or kind of a shortened, a condensed version of those. Guardian summaries, I'll talk a little bit more about those later, but you have the opportunity to turn those on and off there, as well as the view for deleted items. And then finally, you have the opportunity to manage the Meet settings. I would recommend that you make it so that the Meet link is viewable to students. There is an opportunity to take that link that's there and update it or deactivate that link if that's needed for you. And then finally, the last part of those settings deals with grading. Again, this would be something that you just use as a convenience for yourself. You get to it through the gear menu on the top right. That will bring up this page where you can look at the grading settings. You can choose categories. You can choose how grades are calculated and whether you have an overall grade that's viewable to students or not. However, again, for Killing Hill teachers, our actual grades that kind of persist, that are the official grades, those have to be maintained in RenWeb. So if you use the gradebook, it would be only as kind of a convenience for yourself if you like that view as a way to keep track of what students have done. So I hope now that you have some familiarity in how to navigate Google Classroom, especially those three core topics. You know how to navigate the classes page, you know what the main menu includes, and you know what tabs are present within a class. And then if you want, you maybe have jumped into those optional topics as well if they apply to you. Thank you, and God bless your efforts as you're working to educate that next generation of students.